everyone, welcome back to the channel where we talk about video game music, sound design, and implementation. In today's video, we're going to create our own exploration track to the game Horizon Zero Dawn. For those of you new to the game, it's an open-world 3D person role-playing game where you play as Aloy, a hunter who is cast out of her tribe for being different. She explores the post-apocalyptic land ruled by robot creatures while finding her place in the world. Now, in games such as this, meaning an open-world style game, a dynamic soundtrack is used to shift between different states. In this case, I'm talking about different gameplay states, such as the setting or the condition that the player is interacting in. Whether it's in stealth mode, battle, or exploration, which is the one we will touch upon today, each helps to create the context of the world that the player is in. So how can we as composers use exploration music to elevate the immersion of the player in the world of the game? I'm going to show you some of my tips and tricks that I just started learning, how to apply them into a DAW, and create our own exploration music together. So I'm going to pull up the game so that we can listen to it together, but just with sound effects. I'm going to cut out the music so that we don't get influenced. That's a good idea if you just want to listen to the sound effects and create your own music to the track. The first thing we need to do is ask the question, what does the exploration state look like or feel like in Horizon? The art of the game, how it looks, is very tribal with a lush amount of greenery and bodies of water that change in climates from summery to wintry.
This Strider is fast!
There's also this unique part of the game where the land is overrun by machines that resemble animals and have their own primordial instincts. Okay, so the things that point out to me the most are the sort of tribal outfits, the greenery, the lush scenes, and the machines, of course. And whether or not you decide to add those bits of technology in your composition, whether it's through instrumentation, using like synth-like sounds or anything like that, I really think it's up to you as the composer to decide that. Or if you don't, you can keep that out, or you can decide to use it in a later gameplay state, like combat, for example. But anything goes. I think, personally, for the exploration track, since it's a huge part of the game, we can add sort of little bits of technology here and there in synths. So I think what would be a good couple of keywords that we could use to sum up the musical style of the game that would fit best with the overall aesthetic in the exploration mode would be sort of tribal, lush, with some breathing elements of the grass and the wind around us, so space within our music can really help with the overall enormous landscape of the game. And bits of technology. So we have sort of a quick summed up thinking process of what the game style is and how our music can fit stylistically with it. Great. The next step is to think about instruments that can emulate those key words. The biggest one, let's start with that one, is tribal. And there's kind of a lot of instruments for me that come to mind. I'm going to pull up Logic here so we can start thinking about different instruments that we can use for our exploration track. When I think of tribal music, I think of interesting instruments like the burbine and the Armenian duduk, which are both these sort of primal wind-sounding instruments. And here I'm using EastWest's Ancient Kingdom library. EastWest Sounds are a high-quality company that make virtual instruments that any musician can use in their DAW. They make just amazingly and real responsive sounds. So we have some ideas for winds, and there's a lot of interesting ideas that come to my mind when I think of percussion, as in a tribal setting they use a lot of percussive elements for things like ceremonies. and maybe some voices as well, but let's decide that instead of lyrics, we could do some chanting or calming vowels. For lush, I think of strings, playing in and out swelling. And for those bits of technology aspects, we could add some light synths here and there, maybe to match the style and the movement of the strings, but to give it a different textural and timbral quality to it. Keep in mind that after making mockups in a DAW, you can always get real players to replace those tracks or add them as sweeteners to elevate the overall sound of the music. But for now, we're just creating a template for our ideas to expand in the future. So we have our keywords and instruments to fit the style of the game so we know what kind of sound we want. Now comes the fun part, writing it. Which is also the difficult part, but the nice thing about the style of exploration with this type of game is I think it just needs to breathe. So, we can think of a melody like this. We have the concept of a melody in our heads, we write it down, and then we augment it or expand it. We can make different parts show up in different places and in different instruments. Now, something that I often change in my composition process is, do I decide to write the melody or the harmony first? I honestly think whichever comes to you first is the most raw form of what you're gonna get. But for games like this, when it comes to harmony, thinking about interesting techniques like modal interchange chords and chromatic medians can really help the player feel immersed and feel like, okay, I don't just know the track from beginning to end. No, you want the player to feel like it's just in the background, happening. So that's a really great way of adding harmony into those key moments. The last thing I do in my scoring process, before mixing and mastering and all those good things, of course, is to add a little bit of sparkle. And that can literally be the sound of something that sparkles, or like what I decided to do here was to use shakers in some areas as well as water sounding synths for atmospheric ambient sounds. So guys, we finally have all of our ideas put together. We noticed the style of the game, came up with some keywords, thought about instrumentation, created a melody, tried out some harmonies, and made sure that it would all keep the player immersed in the world of the game. So, here is the final mock-up to our exploration music for Horizon Zero Dawn.